I denied her loan application on a Tuesday afternoon, sat across from the woman who'd expelled me 17 years earlier, and calmly explained why her debt-to-income ratio was too high, why the medical situation presented too much risk, why personal circumstances don't excuse failing to meet basic requirements. I used her exact words, her exact tone. She was begging for money to treat her cancer, and I said no because I could, because the numbers gave me cover, because revenge was legal when you dressed it in policy. 3 months later, she was dead, and 6 months after that, I became the legal guardian of her 10-year-old daughter. This is the story of how I won everything and lost myself in the process. I don't remember exactly when I stopped being a kid. Not in the way most people talk about growing up. First girlfriend, first car, graduation. For me, it happened on a Tuesday morning when I was 12 years old, standing in a hospital hallway that smelled like industrial, cleaner and fear, watching 2 paramedics wheel my father away on a gurney while a doctor with kind eyes explained to me what complete spinal injury meant. My father had been a construction foreman, Victor Prescott. Everyone called him Vic. He was the kind of man who could look at a half-built structure and see what it would become, who knew every worker by name, who brought extra sandwiches because someone always forgot lunch. He taught me that work was dignity, that you showed up even when you didn't feel like it, that your word meant everything. The accident happened on a residential project in the suburbs. A load-bearing beam that wasn't properly secured. Wrong angle, wrong moment, wrong everything. He pushed 2 workers out of the way and took the full impact across his back. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. I remember thinking, even at 12, that lucky was a strange word for a man who would never walk again, never work again, never be the same again. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that was trying hard not to be called rough. My mother had left when I was 7, just walked out one day and never came back. No dramatic fight, no explanation, just gone. My father never spoke about her, and I learned not to ask. So it was just the 2 of us, and that had always been enough. Before the accident, I was a decent student. Not exceptional, but solid. I liked math because it had clear answers. I liked history because it helped me understand how things got to be the way they were. I played basketball badly but enthusiastically. I had friends, Jordan Stratton and Blake Ashbury, who lived in my building and shared my interest in model rockets and terrible action movies. Life was normal in the way that seems invisible when you're living it, precious only in retrospect. After the accident, normal ended. The hospital bills arrived first, thick envelopes that my father opened with shaking hands, his face going pale as he read. The insurance from the construction company was fighting the claim, arguing about liability, about proper safety procedures, about whether my father had followed protocol. Meanwhile, the bills kept coming. Physical therapy, medical equipment, modifications to our apartment, medications that cost more per month than our rent. My father tried to hide the stress from me, but I could see it. The way he'd sit in his wheelchair by the window for hours, staring out at nothing. The way his hands trembled when he thought I wasn't looking. The way he'd wake up at night, and I'd hear him crying quietly in his room. I made a decision then. I was 12 years old, and I decided I would help carry the weight. I started small. I took on a paper route before school, waking at 5 in the morning to deliver newspapers through our neighborhood. The money wasn't much, but it was something. My father protested at first, said I should focus on school, on being a kid, but I could see the relief in his eyes when I handed him my first paycheck. At 13, I added a weekend job at a corner grocery store, stocking shelves and bagging groceries. The owner, an elderly man named Simon Bancroft, paid me under the table, and let me take home bruised fruit and day-old bread. Between the paper route and the grocery store, I was bringing in maybe $200 a month. It helped, but it wasn't enough. The real money came when I was 15. Russell Fairmont, the building superintendent, mentioned that the office cleaning company he worked with was always looking for help. Night shifts mostly, cleaning corporate offices after everyone went home. It paid $12 an hour, cash. If I could work 5 nights a week, 4 hours a night, that was nearly $1,000 a month. I took the job without hesitation. My father argued harder this time, said I needed sleep, needed to focus on school, needed to have some kind of normal teenage life, but I watched him struggle to afford his medications. I saw the notices from the landlord about late rent. I heard him on the phone with bill collectors, his voice small and ashamed, asking for just a little more time. "Dad," I said, "let me do this, please." He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something break behind his eyes. Permission, resignation, gratitude, grief, all of it at once. "Just until we get back on our feet," he said quietly. We both knew there was no getting back on our feet. Not really. But we told ourselves that story because it was the only one we had. Riverside High School sat on a hill overlooking the commercial district, a sprawling brick complex that had been built in the 1960s and updated piecemeal ever since. It served about 2,000 students from the surrounding neighborhoods, a mix of working-class families, recent immigrants, and the children of professionals who couldn't quite afford the suburbs. The school had a reputation for being tough but fair, strong, athletics program, decent academics, teachers who mostly cared. The kind of place where you could succeed if you worked hard, where college was possible even if your parents didn't go, where the system was supposed to help kids like me. I believed in that system. I needed to believe in it. My sophomore year started with promise. I was taking advanced math and doing well. My English teacher, Garrett Northfield, had encouraged me to join the school newspaper. I'd made the JV basketball team, barely, but I'd made it. My grades were solid, mostly A's and B's, despite everything else in my life. I was careful to hide how tired I was. I perfected the art of sleeping with my eyes open during study hall. I learned to drink coffee, even though I hated the taste. I kept my night job secret from everyone except Jordan and Blake, who covered for me when I needed it. The cracks started showing in October. I fell asleep during a chemistry exam. Not on purpose. I'd worked a double shift this night before because someone called in sick, and I'd agreed because we needed the money. I woke up to my teacher, Sonia Ridgewell, shaking my shoulder gently. "You need to see the nurse," she said, her voice kind but firm. I insisted I was fine, but she sent me anyway. The school nurse asked questions I deflected. Was I eating enough? Sleeping enough? Was everything okay at home? I smiled and lied and promised to get more rest. The incident got noted in my file. I didn't know it then, but it was the first mark. The second mark came in November. I missed 3 days of school because my father had a medical emergency, a urinary tract infection that turned serious fast. I spent those 3 days in the hospital with him, sleeping in chairs, making sure he wasn't alone. When I came back to school, I had missed tests, assignments, a project deadline. I explained the situation to my teachers. Most were understanding. Garrett Northfield gave me extensions. Sonia Ridgewell offered to let me retake the test. But the absences went into the system, and the system noticed patterns. The third mark came in December, and this one was my fault. I'd been scheduled to work a late shift that ran until 2 in the morning. I knew I had a history presentation the next day, but I thought I could handle it. I'd prepared thoroughly, had my notes ready, felt confident in the material. I just needed to stay awake. I didn't stay awake. I fell asleep standing up during my presentation. Mid-sentence. One moment I was explaining the causes of World War I. The next moment I was jerking awake to scattered laughter and my teacher's concerned face. That's when I met Meredith Lockwood. She was the senior guidance counselor at Riverside, a woman in her early 50s with short gray hair and an efficient manner. Her office was neat and organized, everything in its place. Motivational posters on the walls about perseverance and success. She had a reputation as someone who got results, who helped students navigate college applications, who fought for her kids. I wanted to believe she would fight for me. "Have a seat," she said when I was sent to her office that December afternoon. Her voice was pleasant but professional, the tone of someone who had these conversations every day. I sat. My hands were shaking slightly from exhaustion and embarrassment. She had a folder in front of her, my file. I could see the tabs marking different sections, grades, attendance, disciplinary notes. "I've been reviewing your record," she said, flipping through pages. "You're a bright student. Your standardized test scores are in the 85th percentile. Your freshman year grades were excellent, but this semester has been concerning." "I can explain," I started. She held up a hand. "I've read the notes from your teachers. I know about your father's condition. I know you're working to help support your family. That's admirable." Relief flooded through me. She understood. Someone finally understood. "But," she continued, and the word landed like a door closing, "we need to talk about whether you're capable of managing your responsibilities here at Riverside." The relief evaporated. "I am capable," I said. "I just need—" "You fell asleep during an exam. You fell asleep during a presentation. You've missed multiple days of school. Your grades are slipping. Your teachers are worried about you." "I'm handling it," I insisted. "My grades are still decent. I'm passing everything. I just need a little flexibility while my father—" "The school can't provide special accommodation indefinitely," she said, not unkindly. "We have policies, standards. 2,000 students depending on a functioning system. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm just asking for understanding." She looked at me for a long moment, and I thought I saw something like sympathy in her eyes. But when she spoke, her voice was firm. "I'm going to be honest with you. Right now, you're on track for academic probation. If things don't improve significantly next semester, we'll need to have a more serious conversation about your enrollment here." "Academic probation? My GPA is still above 3.0. It's not just about grades. It's about attendance, about classroom behavior, about demonstrating that you're capable of meeting the basic requirements of being a student here. I'm 16 years old and supporting my disabled father. I'm working 40 hours a week on top of school. I'm doing everything I can." "And that's commendable," she said. "But it doesn't change the school's standards. Personal circumstances don't excuse academic responsibility." The words hung in the air between us. Personal circumstances don't excuse academic responsibility. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her what exactly I was supposed to do. Let my father go without medication? Let us get evicted? Abandon the only family I had? But I didn't scream. I just nodded and thanked her for her time and walked out of her office with my hands still shaking. I worked harder after that meeting. I cut back my cleaning shifts from 5 nights to 4, losing money we couldn't afford to lose, but gaining hours of sleep I desperately needed. I worked with my teachers to make up missed assignments. I stayed after school for extra help. I drank more coffee, slept less, pushed myself harder. For a while, it seemed to work. My grades stabilized. I stopped falling asleep in class. I even managed to bring my history grade up to an A-. I thought maybe I'd turned a corner, maybe I'd proven that I could handle it. Then January came and everything fell apart. My father's insurance claim was finally resolved, denied. The construction company's lawyers had built a case that my father had violated safety protocols, had been negligent, had caused his own injury. It was a lie, but it was a lie with documentation and expert witnesses and legal weight. The denial meant no settlement, no ongoing support, no help with medical bills. We were already behind on rent. Now we were drowning. I picked up a 5th night shift, then a 6th. I was working 6 nights a week, getting maybe 4 hours of sleep a night, surviving on coffee and adrenaline and desperation. My body started shutting down. I missed a week of school in late January because I simply couldn't get out of bed. Not wouldn't, couldn't. My father called the school to report me sick, which was true in every way that mattered. When I finally dragged myself back to Riverside, I had missed 2 tests, multiple assignments, and a major English project. I went to my teachers individually, explained, begged for makeups and extensions. Some agreed, some didn't. The absences went into my file. The incomplete assignments became zeros. My GPA dropped below 3.0, and Meredith Lockwood called me back to her office. This time, the atmosphere was different, more formal. She wasn't alone. The assistant principal, Trevor Hollowell, was there too, sitting in the corner with his own copy of my file. "Thank you for coming," Meredith said, though we both knew I didn't have a choice. "We need to discuss your academic standing." I knew what was coming. I could feel it. "Your attendance this semester has been unacceptable. You've missed 23 days. You're failing 2 classes. Your behavior in the classes you do attend has been problematic. Multiple instances of sleeping, failure to complete work, lack of engagement." "I've been sick," I said, "and I'm working on making up the assignments." Being sick once or twice is understandable. Missing 23 days suggests a pattern of chronic irresponsibility. Chronic irresponsibility. The words felt like a slap. "That's not fair," I said, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. "You know what I'm dealing with. You know about my father, about—" "I know that you're in a difficult situation," she interrupted. "But difficult circumstances don't exempt you from meeting the basic requirements of being a student here. We've given you warnings. We've offered you support services. You've continued to deteriorate." "What support services?" "You put me on probation and told me personal problems don't excuse academic responsibility." Trevor Hollowell leaned forward. "Watch your tone. I'm just trying to understand what I'm supposed to do differently. I'm working to keep my father alive. I'm doing my best." "Your best isn't meeting the school's standards," Meredith said, and her voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. "And we have to consider what's best for the overall learning environment. When a student is chronically absent, chronically unprepared, chronically disengaged, it impacts the entire classroom." "So what are you saying?" She glanced at Trevor, then back at me. "We're recommending that you be withdrawn from Riverside High School." The words didn't process it. First, withdrawn, like I was a transaction being canceled. "You're expelling me?" "It's an administrative withdrawal based on chronic irresponsibility and inability to meet attendance requirements, not technically an expulsion." "What's the difference?" "An expulsion is disciplinary. This is academic. You're welcome to reapply when your personal circumstances have stabilized and you're able to fully commit to your education." I sat there, trying to breathe, trying to think. If I wasn't in school, I couldn't get a diploma. Without a diploma, my future collapsed into minimum wage jobs and dead ends. Everything I was working for, everything I was sacrificing for, would be meaningless. "Please," I said, and I hated the weakness in my voice. "Please don't do this. I can fix it. I can do better. Just give me another chance." Meredith's expression was kind but immovable. I understand this is difficult, but the decision has been made. The paperwork will be processed by the end of the week. You're supposed to help students, I said, and now there was anger in my voice, hot and desperate. That's your job. You're a counselor. You're supposed to help kids who are struggling. I am helping, she said calmly. Sometimes helping means acknowledging when a situation isn't working and making a hard decision. This isn't the right environment for you right now. Maybe in a year or two, when things are more stable. My father is paralyzed. Things aren't going to be more stable. This is my life. Then perhaps, she said, and her voice was very quiet, very final. You need to accept that traditional high school isn't compatible with your life right now. I stood up. My chair scraped back loud against the floor. You're aware of my situation, I said, looking directly at her. You've known since December. You know I'm caring for my father. You know I'm working to keep us housed and fed. And you're choosing to kick me out anyway. I'm choosing to maintain the school's standards, she said. Personal problems are not an excuse for failing to meet basic responsibilities. There it was again. That phrase, personal problems. My father's paralysis was a personal problem. Our poverty was a personal problem. My exhaustion and desperation and fear were personal problems. And none of it mattered. None of it was an excuse. I walked out of her office without another word. I walked through the hallways of Riverside High School for the last time, past the classrooms where I'd studied, and the gym where I'd played terrible basketball, and the cafeteria where I'd eaten lunch with Jordan and Blake. I walked past all of it, and I understood finally what the system really was. It was a machine. A well-intentioned machine, maybe, with good people operating it, people who genuinely believed they were helping. But a machine nonetheless, designed to process students who fit the standard parameters, to advance those who could meet the requirements, and to discard those who couldn't. I didn't fit the parameters, so I was being discarded. The paperwork came through the following week, formally withdrawing me from Riverside High School for chronic irresponsibility and failure to meet attendance standards. There was a note attached explaining that I could reapply for admission after demonstrating improved stability and commitment to education. I filed the paperwork in a drawer and went back to work. I picked up more hours at the cleaning company. Without school to work around, I could take on day shifts and night shifts, could work 10 or 12 hours at a time, could bring in real money. Russell Fairmont got me connected with additional cleaning contracts, small businesses, medical offices, anywhere that needed reliable help. I became very good at cleaning, methodical, thorough, efficient. There was something satisfying about it, actually. You started with a dirty space and you ended with a clean one. Clear input, clear output, no ambiguity. No one judging whether your personal circumstances excused your performance. My father saw what was happening to me. I was 16 years old, working 70 hours a week, getting harder and quieter by the day. He tried to talk to me about it. This isn't right, he said one night, watching me count out my earnings at the kitchen table. You should be in school. You should be with your friends. We need the money, I said, not looking up. Not like this. Not at the cost of your future. My future was decided when Meredith Lockwood signed that withdrawal form. You can fight it. You can appeal. There are programs, alternative schools. I don't want to fight it, I said, and I meant it. I don't want anything from them anymore. He was quiet for a long time. Then, don't let this make you bitter. I didn't answer. I was already bitter. The bitterness had settled in my chest like a weight, cold and permanent. But I was also clear-headed in a way I'd never been before. I understood how the world worked now. I understood that fairness was a story we told ourselves, that the system protected itself first, that you were on your own no matter what anyone said. And I understood that the only person I could rely on was myself. My father died on a Tuesday in March, 3 months after I was withdrawn from Riverside. It was sudden. A pulmonary embolism, the doctor said. A blood clot, probably related to his immobility, that traveled to his lungs. He was there one moment, watching television in his wheelchair, and then he was gasping and I was calling 911, and the paramedics were rushing him away and I was following in the ambulance, holding his hand while he struggled to breathe. He died in the emergency room. I was standing right there. The last thing he said to me was, "I'm sorry." I didn't understand what he was apologizing for being hurt, for costing money, for leaving me alone. I was 16 years old and I had no one. The funeral was small. Jordan and Blake came. Russell Fairmont came. A few of my father's old co-workers came. Simon Bancroft closed his store for the afternoon to be there. People said kind things about my father, about what a good man he was, how hard he worked, how much he loved me. No one from Riverside came, not one teacher, not the principal, not Meredith Lockwood. I hadn't expected them to, but the absence confirmed everything I'd already learned about how much I mattered to the system that was supposed to care for me. After the funeral, social services got involved. A caseworker named Felicity Calder came to our apartment to assess my situation. She was young, maybe late 20s, with earnest eyes and a determination to help that reminded me painfully of how naive I used to be. "You're a minor," she explained gently. "You can't live alone. We need to find placement for you until you turn 18. "I have a job," I said. "I can pay rent. I can take care of myself." "I'm sure you can, but legally you need a guardian." "Do you have any family, aunts, uncles, grandparents?" I didn't. My father's parents were dead. My mother's family had cut contact when she left. There was no one. "We have several good foster homes in the area," Felicity said. "I can place you with a family, get you enrolled in a new school." "I'm not going back to school." "You need to complete your education." "The school system kicked me out for taking care of my father. I'm not going back." She looked at me with such pity that I wanted to scream. "I understand you're angry, but you can't give up on your future. You're bright. You're capable." "I'm done talking about this," I said. "When do I have to leave the apartment?" The timeline was short. I had until the end of the month to clear out. The landlord wanted the unit for a new tenant. Everything my father owned, everything we'd built together, had to be sorted, packed, discarded. I worked mechanically through it. Clothes to donation, furniture to the curb, papers and documents into boxes. I kept my father's watch, his wedding ring, and a photo of the two of us from before the accident. Everything else went. In the back of his closet, I found a lockbox I'd never seen before. Inside were documents, legal documents, property deeds, old insurance papers, letters from lawyers. I read through them slowly, piecing together a story I'd never known. My father's family had owned property, a small commercial building in a neighborhood that was gentrifying. His father had left it to him when he died, but there had been a legal dispute with his brother, my uncle, who I'd never met. The case had been in litigation for years, slowly grinding through the courts, eating up legal fees. When my father became paralyzed, he'd let the case drop. Couldn't afford the lawyers anymore. Couldn't focus on it. The property had passed to my uncle by default. But the documents showed something else. The original will was clear. The property should have been my father's, then mine. My uncle had essentially stolen it through legal manipulation and my father's inability to fight. I closed the lockbox and sat on the floor of the empty apartment for a long time. Then I made a decision. I was placed in a foster home in a different neighborhood. The family was fine. Middle-aged couple, 2 other foster kids, everyone trying their best. But I wasn't there to build a new family. I was there to survive until I turned 18. I kept working, kept cleaning offices, kept saving money, kept reading through my father's legal documents, teaching myself about property law and inheritance and civil litigation. On my 18th birthday, I took my savings and hired a lawyer. The lawyer was skeptical. The case was old. The property had changed hands. The chances of success were minimal, but he agreed to take it on contingency. If we won, he'd take a percentage. If we lost, I owed nothing. We sued my uncle for wrongful possession of inherited property. The case took 2 years. 2 years of depositions and motions and hearings and delays. 2 years of my life focused on one single goal: reclaiming what my father should have left me. I was 20 when we finally won. The judge ruled that my uncle had acted in bad faith, that he'd manipulated the probate process while my father was incapacitated, that the property rightfully belonged to me. My uncle was ordered to transfer the deed and pay damages. The property was worth about $400,000. After legal fees and taxes, I cleared close to $280,000. I was 20 years old, with more money than I'd ever imagined having. Money that should have saved my father. Money that came 4 years too late. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like proof of everything that was wrong with the world. I could have done anything with the money. Invested it, traveled, gone to college. Part of me wanted to waste it, to prove that money didn't matter, that it couldn't fix anything. But I didn't waste it, because waste would have been another form of surrender, and I was done surrendering. I enrolled in community college, not because I believed in the system anymore, but because I needed credentials. I studied business administration and finance, learning the language of money and power. I worked while I studied, still cleaning offices at night, because I couldn't stand being financially dependent on anyone or anything. I was a strange student, older than most of my classmates, harder, with no interest in social life or campus activities. I went to class, absorbed information, got perfect grades, and left. Professors tried to connect with me, encouraged me to get involved, to think about transferring to a 4-year university. I thanked them politely and ignored them. I transferred to a state university after 2 years, studied economics and accounting, graduated summa cum laude, applied to graduate programs in finance, got accepted to several, chose the most prestigious one, not because I cared about prestige, but because I wanted the signal it sent. By the time I was 26, I had an MBA from a top-tier program and job offers from 3 major banks. I chose Whitcomb Financial, a large regional bank with aggressive growth targets and a reputation for tough lending standards. I started as a junior loan officer, evaluating small business applications and consumer credit requests. I was very good at it. Numbers didn't lie. Numbers didn't care about personal circumstances or sad stories or extenuating factors. Numbers showed whether someone was a good risk or a bad risk, whether they could pay back what they borrowed, whether they deserved credit. I evaluated every application purely on metrics: income, credit score, debt-to-income ratio, collateral, payment history. If the numbers supported it, I approved. If they didn't, I denied. No exceptions, no flexibility. My approval rate was low. My default rate was even lower. Within 2 years, I was promoted to senior loan officer. Within 5 years, I was managing the entire consumer lending division. People called me fair. People called me strict. People called me emotionless. All of those things were true. I built a life around work. I bought a small, efficient apartment in a safe neighborhood. I went to the gym religiously. I ate well. I slept enough. I had no friends, no relationships, no hobbies beyond reading financial news and studying market trends. I was successful. I was stable. I was exactly what Meredith Lockwood had told me I needed to be before the school would consider taking me back. I never once considered going back. The years passed. I climbed higher at Whitcomb Financial. I managed larger portfolios, made bigger decisions, represented the bank at industry conferences. I was respected. I was valued. I was paid well. I was also completely alone. There were moments late at night in my efficient apartment when I wondered if this was what winning looked like. If transforming myself into a cold, efficient instrument of financial judgment was actually success or just a different kind of death. But I pushed those thoughts away. I had built something from nothing. I had refused to be a victim. I had turned pain into power. And then, one afternoon in early spring, Meredith Lockwood walked into my office. I saw her before she saw me. She was standing in the main branch lobby, looking at the directory, clearly trying to find the right office. She'd aged. Her hair was fully gray now, her face more lined, but she was unmistakably the same woman who had expelled me from Riverside 17 years earlier. I watched her from my office window, feeling my heartbeat accelerate. I'd imagined this moment 1,000 times over the years. Revenge fantasies, confrontation scenarios, calm, devastating speeches about what her decision had cost me. None of them prepared me for the actual weight of seeing her in person. She was directed to my office. My assistant checked the appointment schedule. Meredith Lockwood, 2 p.m., personal loan application. She was shown to the small conference room where I conducted initial loan interviews. I took a moment to compose myself, adjusted my tie, breathed slowly, reminded myself that I was in control here, that she was the one requesting something from me, that all the power belonged to me now. Then I walked into the conference room with her file in my hand. She looked up when I entered, and I saw the recognition hit her. A flicker of surprise, then something like confusion, then a smile that tried to bridge 17 years like they were nothing. "Oh my goodness," she said, standing. I'm sorry, I know I should remember your name, but—" "I'm Victor Prescott," I said, my voice level. "Senior loan officer. Please sit down." "Victor Prescott," she repeated, and I could see her mentally, rifling through old files, trying to place me. "Did you go to Riverside? I was a counselor there for years." "I know," I said. "You expelled me when I was 16. The smile froze on her face. I'm sorry, I don't. You withdrew me for chronic irresponsibility." December 2009. My father had been paralyzed in a construction accident. I was working nights to support us. You told me personal problems don't excuse academic responsibility. The color drained from her face. She sat back down, slowly. "I remember," she said quietly. "You were the boy who— I'm so sorry I didn't realize. You didn't realize I'd be evaluating your loan application?" I kept my voice professional, calm. "No, I suppose you wouldn't have." She looked down at her hands. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "I didn't know you'd gone into finance. I'm glad to see you've done well for yourself." "No thanks to Riverside High School." The barb landed. She flinched. "I understand you're angry." "I'm not angry," I said, and it was true. Anger was too hot, too alive. What I felt was cold and vast and final. "I'm here to evaluate your loan application. Shall we begin?" I opened her file. She was requesting a personal loan of $40,000. The purpose listed was medical expenses. Her income as a retired guidance counselor was modest, pension and Social Security. Her credit score was decent, but not excellent. She had some savings, but not enough to cover her current need. "Can you tell me about the medical expenses?" I asked, my pen poised over the application form. She hesitated. It's for treatment. Cancer. The insurance doesn't cover all of it, and I need to start the treatment soon." I looked up at her. She looked tired, scared, human. "I see," I said. "And you've explored other options? Family assistance? Medical payment plans?" "I have a daughter," she said. "She's in grad school. I don't want to burden her with this. The treatment center requires payment up front. I have exhausted the payment plan options with the hospital." I made notes, asked about her debt-to-income ratio, reviewed her credit history, asked about collateral, about her ability to make monthly payments on a fixed income, about her long-term financial stability. I asked everything the bank required me to ask, and then I looked at the numbers. Objectively, she was borderline. Her debt-to-income ratio was higher than ideal. Her income was fixed and would only decrease with age. She had no significant assets to use as collateral. The medical condition introduced significant risk. What if the treatment didn't work? What if she couldn't make payments? A responsible loan officer would deny this application. I could approve it. I had the authority. I could look at the human factors, consider the circumstances, exercise discretion. I could be merciful. I looked at Meredith Lockwood, sitting across from me, waiting for my decision. 17 years ago, she'd had the power to show mercy, to consider circumstances, to exercise discretion. She'd chosen not to. "Ms. Lockwood," I said, my voice gentle, professional, final. "I'm afraid I can't approve this application. Your debt-to-income ratio exceeds our lending parameters, and the medical situation presents too much repayment risk." Her face went white. "But I need this. The treatment." "I understand it's difficult," I said, and I used her words, her exact tone. "But difficult circumstances don't exempt you from meeting basic lending requirements. We have policies, standards." "Please," she said, and there was desperation in her voice now. "I've been a customer at this bank for 20 years. I've never missed a payment. I just need this one loan." "Your personal history with the bank doesn't change the fundamental risk assessment," I said. "Personal circumstances don't excuse failing to meet basic requirements." I saw the moment she understood, not just that I was denying her loan, but why. Not just that I was powerful now and she wasn't, but that I was using her own logic, her own words, her own coldness. She started to cry, quiet tears running down her face while she tried to maintain composure. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry for what happened to you. I made a mistake. I should have fought harder for you. I should have." "Your apology is noted," I said, "but it doesn't change the lending decision. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" She stood up, gathering her purse with shaking hands. "No," she said. "No, there's nothing else." She walked to the door, then paused, looked back at me. "I hope you find peace," she said. "I already have," I lied. She left. I sat in the conference room for a long time, looking at the file, at the neat notes I'd made, at the official denial stamp I'd pressed into the application. It should have felt good. It should have felt like justice, like vindication, like proof that the world could be fair after all, that consequences were real, that you could win. It felt like nothing at all. I didn't think about Meredith Lockwood after that meeting, or rather, I tried not to. I filed her application, moved on to the next one, maintained my routine. Work, gym, home, sleep. The machine of my life ran smoothly. 3 months later, I got a call from Felicity Calder. I almost didn't recognize the name at first. It had been over 15 years since she'd been my caseworker, since she'd placed me in foster care with those earnest eyes and that determination to help. "I'm sorry to contact you out of the blue," she said when I answered. "I wasn't sure if you'd remember me." "I remember," I said. "What can I do for you?" "I'm calling because of a situation with a child in the system." Normally I wouldn't reach out like this, but there's a connection to your past, and I thought you should know." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "Go on." "Do you remember, Meredith Lockwood? She was a guidance counselor at—" "I remember. She passed away last month. Cancer. She had a daughter, Corinne Lockwood, who's 10 years old. The girl's father isn't in the picture. No other family willing to take her, and Meredith's last wishes specified that she didn't want her daughter in the traditional foster system if possible." My mouth went dry. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Meredith left a letter. She wrote it shortly before she died. It mentions you specifically." "She mentioned me?" "She said she failed you when you were young, that she made a decision that haunted her, that she wished she could undo it, and she asked—" Felicity paused. "She asked that if anything happened to her, if Corinne needed help, that someone try to reach out to you. She said you'd understand what it meant to lose a parent, to be failed by the system." I sat down. My legs wouldn't hold me. "She asked me to take her daughter?" "Not exactly, she just asked that you be told, that you be given the option to help if you wanted to. I know it's an unusual request. You have no obligation here. But I thought you deserved to know." I was quiet for a long time. "What happens to the girl if no one steps forward?" "Foster care. She's already been flagged as high risk, showing behavioral problems, attachment issues. The school is having trouble with her. She's angry, grieving, acting out. It's not her fault, but it makes placement difficult. High risk, behavioral problems, acting out, the system's language for a child in pain." "Can I think about this?" I asked. "Of course. Take whatever time you need." I hung up and sat in my office with my head in my hands. Meredith Lockwood was dead. The cancer had killed her. The cancer she'd needed a loan to treat. The loan I'd denied. I'd told myself it was her numbers that didn't work, her risk profile, her failure to meet basic requirements. I'd told myself I was just doing my job, applying the same standards I applied to everyone. But I'd known, sitting in that conference room, exactly what I was doing. I'd known she was desperate. I'd known she was scared. I'd known that denying her loan might kill her, and I'd done it anyway. Not because the numbers demanded it, but because I wanted to. Because it felt like justice. Because 17 years of cold calculation had led to this moment, where I could show her what her logic looked like from the other side. I'd won. I'd gotten my revenge, and it had killed her. Not legally, not in any way that could be proven or prosecuted, but I knew. I looked into the mirror every morning and I knew. And now her daughter was alone, just like I'd been alone. Flagged by the system as a problem, just like I'd been a problem. Headed toward the same grinding machinery of foster care and institutional indifference that had shaped me into this cold, efficient instrument of judgment. The cycle was repeating, and I'd enabled it, I'd chosen it. I thought about my father, dying in that hospital room, apologizing for something that wasn't his fault. I thought about Russell Fairmont and Simon Bancroft and Jordan and Blake, the people who'd shown me kindness when I had nothing. I thought about who I'd been at 16, exhausted, scared, trying so hard to do the right thing in a system designed to discard people like me. And I thought about who I'd become, successful, stable, alone, hard. I called Felicity back the next day. "I want to meet her," I said. "The girl, Corinne." "Are you sure?" "No, but I want to meet her anyway." Corinne Lockwood was small for 10 years old, with her mother's gray eyes and an expression that reminded me painfully of myself at that age. Wary, defensive, expecting nothing good. We met at Felicity's office. Corinne sat in a chair that was too big for her, arms crossed, looking everywhere except at me. "Corinne," Felicity said gently, "this is Victor Prescott. He knew your mom a long time." Ago. I don't care, Corinne said. Fair enough. I'm not here to give you a speech, I said, or to tell you everything will be okay. I'm here because your mom asked someone to reach out to me after she died, and I wanted to meet you. She looked at me for the first time. Why? Because your mom made a bad decision about me when I was young, and she knew it. I think she was trying to make it right. By dumping me on some random guy? She didn't dump you on me. She gave me information. What I do with it is up to me. So what are you going to do with it? I looked at this small, angry child, and I saw myself. Saw the exact moment when you learn that the adults in your life can't protect you, that the system doesn't actually care, that you're on your own. I don't know yet, I said honestly, but I'm willing to try to figure it out if you are. She studied me for a long moment. I don't need your pity. Good. I don't have any to give. The corner of her mouth almost twitched. Almost. What would happen if I came to live with you? You'd have a room, food, school, rules, someone to come home to. That's it? That's not enough? She looked away. Everyone always leaves. I'm not everyone, I said. It took 6 weeks to process the paperwork. Background checks, home visits, family court hearings. Felicity walked me through the process, helped me navigate the bureaucracy, advocated for the placement even though it was unusual. She needs stability, Felicity said. She needs someone who understands what she's going through. You're not the conventional choice, but I think you might be the right one. I moved to a larger apartment, 3 bedrooms, near a good school. I painted one room in colors Felicity said Corinne liked. I bought furniture, clothes, school supplies. I did everything mechanically, checking items off a list, trying not to think too hard about what I was doing. Corinne moved in on a Saturday in July. She had 2 garbage bags of belongings and a backpack. That was it. Everything that remained of her life fit in 2 garbage bags. This is your room, I said, showing her the space I'd prepared. You can change anything you want, paint, furniture, whatever. She stood in the doorway, not entering. Why are you doing this? She asked. Because no one did it for me, I said, and I think we both deserve better than what we got. She looked at me with those gray eyes, so much like her mother's, and I saw a decision being made, not trust, not yet, but maybe the possibility of trust. Okay, she said, and she walked into the room. Raising Corinne was the hardest thing I'd ever done. She fought me on everything at first. Bedtime, meals, school, basic household rules. She'd been in 3 foster placements in 4 months before coming to me, and she'd learned that adults were temporary, rules were arbitrary, and attachment was dangerous. I didn't try to win her over with kindness. I'd seen too many well-meaning people try that approach, offering warmth and understanding while the child waited for the inevitable abandonment. Instead, I offered consistency, same rules every day, same expectations, same consequences, same presence. If she didn't do homework, she lost privileges. If she broke curfew, she lost freedom. If she lied, she faced the truth, no exceptions. No special treatment because she'd had a hard life, but also, if she succeeded, I acknowledged it. If she tried, I noticed. If she needed help, I provided it. She tested me constantly those first months. Stayed out past curfew, skipped school, got in fights, failed tests deliberately, everything designed to prove that I would give up on her, send her back, confirm what she already knew about adults and systems and the fundamental unfairness of the world. I didn't give up. When she stayed out past curfew, I waited up. When she skipped school, I drove her there myself. When she failed tests, I sat with her every night until she understood the material. When she got in fights, I showed up at the principal's office and advocated for her, while also making sure she faced consequences. I was not warm, I was not nurturing. I was present, consistent, and unwavering. Slowly, grudgingly, she stopped testing quite so hard. The real breakthrough came 6 months in. She'd been called to the principal's office for talking back to a teacher. The teacher wanted her suspended. The principal was ready to agree. I showed up for the meeting. "Tell me what happened," I said to Corinne in front of everyone. She was defensive, arms crossed, expecting me to take the school's side. She accused me of cheating. I wasn't cheating. I told her she was wrong. "How did you tell her?" "I told her she was wrong and she should check her facts before accusing students." The teacher, Ingrid Stratton, jumped in. She was disrespectful and insubordinate. I turned to her. "Was she cheating?" "Well, no, but so you falsely accused her, she defended herself, and now you want to punish her for it? She needs to learn to respect authority." I looked at Ingrid Stratton, this well-meaning teacher who probably considered herself fair and kind, and I felt the old anger stir. "She needs to learn that defending herself against false accusations isn't disrespectful," I said. "And you need to learn to verify your facts before making accusations. Corinne will apologize for her tone. You will apologize for the false accusation, and we'll all move forward." The principal tried to object. I was polite but immovable. Corinne was right. The teacher was wrong. That was the fact, and facts didn't care about hierarchy or authority or institutional convenience. We left that office with no suspension, and Corinne looking at me like she'd never seen me before. "You took my side," she said in the car. "You weren't wrong," I said. "Being right doesn't require being nice about it, but you still need to work on tone. We'll practice." "Why?" "Because the world is already looking for reasons to discount you. Don't give them easy ones." She was quiet for a long time. Then, "My mom never took my side. She always sided with the teachers." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Your mom had her own issues. She made mistakes. But she also asked me to help you, which means she learned something. People can change." "Did you change?" I thought about that. About the cold, efficient man I'd become. About the revenge I'd taken. About Meredith Lockwood dying alone, denied help she desperately needed. "I'm trying to," I said. Corinne got better. Not perfect. No one's perfect. But better. She started doing her homework without being forced. Started coming home on time. Started talking to me, tentatively, about her day, her thoughts, her fears. She told me about her mother once, late one night when she couldn't sleep. "She was always so stressed," Corinne said, sitting at the kitchen table, while I made her warm milk. "Always worried about money, about her health, about me. She tried to hide it, but I could tell. That must have been hard. The last few months were the worst. She kept trying to get a loan for her treatment. The bank kept saying no. She got so desperate. She cried a lot." The warm milk sloshed in my hand. I steadied it, poured it into a mug, set it in front of Corinne. "She did everything she could," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "I know. She just couldn't catch a break." Corinne didn't know. Didn't know that I was the one who denied that final loan application. Didn't know that her mother's desperation had played out in front of me, while I methodically explained why the numbers didn't work. Didn't know that I could have helped and chose not to. I lived with that knowledge every day, watched Corinne grow and heal and slowly start to trust the world again, knowing that I'd been instrumental in destroying that world in the first place. It would have been easier if she hated me, if she rejected my help, if she stayed angry and broken. Then I could have walked away with my revenge intact, my narrative of justified payback undisturbed. But she didn't hate me. She bloomed under consistency and structure, and someone finally choosing to show up for her. And every bit of her healing was a reminder of what her mother could have done if she'd had more time, more resources, more help. Help I'd refused to give. Corinne was 14 when she asked me directly about her mother. We were sitting at dinner, a routine we'd established, eating together every night, no phones, just conversation. She'd been quiet all evening, pushing food around her plate. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "Of course." "How did you really know my mom?" I'd prepared for this question for years, had my answer ready, had decided what I would and wouldn't say. "She was my guidance counselor in high school," I said. "A long time ago." "Were you friends?" "No, not friends. But she asked you to help me. Why would she do that if you weren't friends?" I set down my fork, looked at this girl I'd been raising for 4 years, who was smart and perceptive and deserved honesty. "Because she felt she owed me something," I said carefully. "She made a decision that hurt me when I was young, and she regretted it." "What decision?" "She expelled me from school when my father was sick. I was working to support us, missing classes, falling behind. Instead of helping me, she removed me from school entirely." Corinne was quiet, processing this. "That's why you took me in? Because she owed you?" "Initially, yes. That's why I agreed to meet you." "And now?" I looked at her. This child who'd come to me angry and broken and convinced she was unlovable, who'd slowly learned to trust, to try, to hope, who was getting straight A's and making friends and thinking about college, who called me dad sometimes when she forgot to be guarded. "Now I'm here because you're my daughter," I said. "Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being about your mother and started being about you." She smiled, relieved. "Good, because you're kind of stuck with me now." "I'm aware." But I didn't tell her the rest. Didn't tell her that I'd seen her mother begging for a loan in my office. Didn't tell her that I'd had the power to help and refused. Didn't tell her that my revenge had orphaned her. Some truths were too heavy to share. Corinne graduated high school with honors, got accepted to 3 universities, chose the one that gave her the best scholarship package because she'd learned early how much money mattered. At her graduation, watching her walk across that stage, I felt something crack in my chest. Pride, yes, but also grief. Grief for all the years her mother had missed. Grief for the woman Meredith Lockwood might have been if I'd shown her the mercy she'd never shown me. Grief for the man I'd been before I'd chosen revenge over humanity. Corinne moved into her dorm that fall. I helped her unpack, met her roommate, gave her awkward fatherly advice about studying and safety and calling home. "I'm going to be fine," she said, hugging me goodbye. "You taught me how to take care of myself." "I know you will," I said. I drove home to my empty apartment and sat in the silence for a long time. I'd broken the cycle. Corinne wouldn't be damaged the way I was damaged, wouldn't carry the same cold hardness, wouldn't turn into an instrument of calculated revenge. She'd grown up knowing that someone chose to show up for her, that the system could be fought, that she was worth fighting for. But breaking the cycle hadn't healed me. If anything, watching her become whole highlighted how broken I remained. I was 43 years old, successful, respected, wealthy, alone. I'd spent my entire adult life building power and using it to ensure I'd never be vulnerable again. I'd turned myself into exactly the kind of cold, policy-driven institution that had failed me. And when I'd finally had the chance to use that power for revenge, I'd taken it without hesitation. The revenge had been perfect, legal, unassailable, and it had killed someone, not directly, not in any way that made me legally culpable, but Meredith Lockwood had died because I'd denied her the help she desperately needed, and I'd denied it because I could, because I wanted to, because it felt like justice. It wasn't justice. It was just cruelty wearing justice's mask. I started seeing a therapist when I was 45, not because I wanted to, Because I woke up one morning and realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt anything other than efficient competence or cold satisfaction. Couldn't remember the last time I'd laughed. Couldn't remember the last time I'd connected with another human being in a way that wasn't transactional. The therapist, Celia Northfield, was older than me, with gray hair and patient eyes, and an ability to sit with silence that made me uncomfortable. "Tell me why you're here," she said in our first session. "I'm not sure," I said. "I'm successful. I have everything I thought I wanted, but I don't feel anything." "When did you stop feeling?" I thought about that. "When my father died, when I was 16. That's a long time to be numb. It was necessary to survive, to succeed. And now? Now I've succeeded, and I don't know what the point was." We talked for months. About my father, about Riverside, about Meredith Lockwood, about the years of working myself to exhaustion, the legal battle for the property, the MBA, the banking career, about becoming the kind of person who could deny a desperate woman a loan and sleep fine afterward, about Corinne. "You saved her," Celia said. "I didn't save her. I gave her basic stability." "That's not saving, that's the bare minimum." "You gave her what no one gave you. That's significant." "I also killed her mother." "You denied a loan application. That's not the same as killing someone." "Isn't it?" "I knew she needed the money for medical treatment. I knew denying her might mean she couldn't get the treatment. I denied her anyway. That's not just following policy, that's choosing revenge. And you've been punishing yourself for it ever since." "I should be punished. I used institutional power to settle a personal vendetta." "That's worse than what she did to me." Celia leaned forward. "Is it? She had the power to help a traumatized child and chose not to. You had the power to help a desperate woman and chose not to. Both of you prioritized policy over people. Both of you caused lasting harm. So we're the same." "No, because you recognized what you did. You took responsibility for the consequences. You spent years trying to undo the damage." She wrote a letter asking someone else to clean up her mess. I wanted to argue, to defend Meredith, to defend the idea that there was a meaningful difference between her cold, bureaucratic failure and my calculated revenge. But maybe there wasn't. Maybe we were both people who'd let the machine run us over until we became part of the machine, who'd taken our pain and transformed it into institutional violence, who'd chosen rules over humanity because rules were safer, cleaner, less complicated. Maybe the only real difference was that I'd been forced to see the consequences of my choice, had been forced to live with the orphan I'd created, to watch her struggle and heal and grow, had been forced to understand, viscerally, what my revenge actually meant. "I don't know how to be different," I said finally. "You're already different. You're here. You're questioning. You're feeling guilty, which means you're feeling something. Guilt isn't enough. It's a start." I kept seeing Celia, kept working through the layers of anger and grief and calculated coldness I'd built around myself, kept trying to figure out how to be a person instead of a machine. It was slow, painful, often felt pointless. But I kept going. I made small changes, started accepting lunch invitations from colleagues instead of always eating alone, joined a community financial literacy program, teaching low-income families about budgeting and credit, trying to use my knowledge to actually help instead of just evaluate risk. Started approving loan applications that were borderline, the ones where the numbers didn't quite work, but the circumstances were compelling. The single mother trying to start a business, the student with bad credit but genuine potential, the people who just needed someone to take a chance on them. My default rate went up slightly. My boss noticed. I didn't care. Corinne graduated college, got a job in non-profit work, helping at-risk youth. She was good at it. Had the combination of empathy and toughness that the work required. "You inspired me," she told me once. Seeing how you showed up for me when you didn't have to. I want to do that for other kids. I had to, I said. I owed your mother a debt. You don't still think that, do you? That this was about debt? I looked at her. 22 years old, smart and kind and whole. No, I said, not anymore. But I did still carry the debt, would always carry it. The knowledge of what I'd done, the choice I'd made, the life I'd ended through cold calculation and justified revenge. That weight didn't go away just because I'd done some good to balance it. Corinne came to visit me when she was 25. We had dinner at my apartment, falling into the old comfortable rhythm of cooking together, talking about her work, my work, current events. She seemed nervous, though. Kept starting to say something and stopping. "What's on your mind?" I asked finally. She set down her fork. "I found some papers when I was going through old boxes, Mom's papers from when she died." My stomach dropped. What kind of papers?" "Legal documents, financial records, including a loan application she made a few months before she died." She looked at me directly. "From Whitcomb Financial. From your office." I couldn't breathe. "I saw your signature on the denial form," she continued, her voice very quiet. "You were the loan officer who reviewed her case." I could have lied. Could have said I didn't remember. That I processed hundreds of applications. That it was just business. But I'd spent 10 years learning to be a person again. Learning to feel, and I couldn't lie to her. "Yes," I said. I denied her application. "Did you know it was for medical treatment?" "Yes." "Did you deny it because of what she did to you?" I looked at this woman I'd raised, who was looking at me with her mother's gray eyes, waiting for the truth. "Yes," I said. "The application was borderline. I could have approved it with discretion. I chose not to because I wanted her to understand what it felt like to be denied help when you desperately needed it. I wanted revenge." The silence was massive. "So you killed her," Corinne said finally. "The cancer killed her, but I removed one option she might have used to fight it. So yes. In a meaningful way, yes." She stood up, started pacing. I waited, feeling my entire world about to collapse. "I should hate you," she said. "You should. I should walk out of here and never speak to you again. Yes. But I can't, because you're my father, because you showed up for me every single day for 10 years, because you broke yourself trying to give me what you never had." She was crying now. So was I. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry. If I could take it back, would you, really? If you could go back to that moment in your office, knowing what you know now, would you approve the loan?" I thought about it, really thought about it. Tried to put myself back in that conference room, facing Meredith Lockwood's desperate plea, carrying 17 years of anger and pain. "I want to say yes," I said finally. "I want to believe I'd be bigger than my anger, but honestly, I don't know. The man I was then, I don't think he could have done it. And the man you are now? The man I am now would never be in that situation, because the man I am now wouldn't be running on cold logic and calculated revenge. But I only became this man because I had to face what my revenge actually meant. Because I had to raise you." She wiped her eyes, sat back down. "She made mistakes," Corinne said. "She was cold to you when you needed help. But she was also human. She was stressed and overwhelmed and working in a broken system. And she made a terrible decision." "I know. And you made a terrible decision too. You had power and you used it for revenge instead of mercy." "I know. But then you spent 10 years trying to be better, trying to make up for it." "It's not enough. It could never be enough." "No," she agreed. "It's not enough, but it's something." We sat in silence for a long time. "I can't forgive you for killing my mother," she said finally. "That's too big, too permanent." "I understand. But I also can't hate you for being human. for being hurt and angry and choosing revenge, because I felt that way. When Mom died, when I was alone, I wanted to hurt someone too. I just didn't have the power to do it. That's different. Is it? Or is it just that circumstances didn't line up to let me act on my worst impulses? I didn't have an answer for that. I need time, she said, to process this, to figure out what it means. Take all the time you need. She stood up, gathered her things, paused at the door. Did you love her, my mom? No, I barely knew her. But you loved me. Yes, I love you. Then maybe that's what matters. Not that you were perfect, not that you made all the right choices, but that you chose love eventually, that you broke the cycle. She left. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by the evidence of my careful, controlled life, and I understood finally what the cost of revenge really was. Not the guilt, not the consequences. Those were real, but they were also abstract. The real cost was this: I'd won. I'd gotten everything I wanted. I'd built power, achieved success, taken perfect revenge, and all of it was empty because the person I'd become in pursuit of it was incapable of experiencing satisfaction. I'd turned myself into a machine to survive the system that failed me. And then I'd used that machine nature to destroy someone else. And the only reason I'd found my way back to humanity was because I'd been forced to face the human cost of my revenge every single day for 10 years. I was better now, more whole, capable of feeling and connecting and being vulnerable, but I only got here because I destroyed someone first, because Corinne existed, because Meredith Lockwood had died. That was the bargain. That was the price, and I would carry it for the rest of my life. Corinne didn't speak to me for 3 months. I didn't push, didn't call, didn't demand explanations or forgiveness. I'd spent 10 years teaching her that she had the right to boundaries, the right to take space, the right to protect herself. I couldn't violate those principles now, just because her boundary hurt me. I went to therapy, worked through my guilt and grief with Celia, tried to understand what it meant to live with what I'd done. You can't undo it, Celia said. You can't bring her mother back. You can't make the choice you made any less terrible. I know, but you can choose what you do with the rest of your life. Whether you let this define you as a villain or as someone who made a terrible mistake and tried to do better. Does it matter which one I choose? The outcome is the same. Meredith Lockwood is still dead. It matters to Corinne. It matters to the people you can still help. It matters to you. I wasn't sure if it mattered to me, but I kept going anyway. I restructured my work at the bank, moved out of consumer lending entirely, into commercial development, started working with nonprofit organizations, helping them secure financing for community projects, used my knowledge of the system to help people navigate it rather than to enforce its rules. I donated money, a lot of it, to organizations that helped people in crisis, that provided emergency assistance, that filled the gaps the system left behind. I donated anonymously to cancer research, to foster care programs, to scholarship funds for kids in situations like mine had been. Money couldn't bring Meredith back, but it could help people in similar situations. It could be a small repayment on an unpayable debt. Corinne called me on Christmas Eve. "Can I come over?" she asked. Of course. She showed up with a bottle of wine and a cautious expression. We sat in my living room, the space that had once felt so empty and now just felt quiet. "I've been thinking a lot," she said. "About Mom, about you, about what you told me." "Okay." I talked to my therapist about it, about whether I can have a relationship with you knowing what you did. I braced myself for goodbye, for the final severing that I probably deserved. She asked me what I would lose if I cut you out of my life completely, Corinne continued. And I realized I'd lose the only parent I've ever really had, the person who showed up for me when no one else did, the person who taught me that I matter, that I deserve to take up space, that I can trust someone to stay. But I also killed your mother. In a way that you can't ever fully make right, she agreed. And I'll always carry that. The knowledge that you had the power to help her and chose not to, that your revenge orphaned me. I'm sorry. I know you are, and I know that if you could go back, part of you wishes you'd made a different choice. But I also know that the man who denied that loan was a different person than the man sitting in front of me now. You were broken in a specific way that made you capable of that kind of calculated cruelty. And raising me broke you differently, made you human again. That's not an excuse. No, but it's context. And I've decided that I can hold both truths at the same time, that you did something terrible, and that you also saved me, that I can love you and be angry at you and grieve what you took from me, and be grateful for what you gave me. You don't have to do that. You don't have to make peace with it. I'm not making peace with it. I'm choosing to live with complexity, because the alternative is cutting you out, and that would hurt me more than it would hurt you. We talked for hours that night, about her mother, about my father, about the systems that had failed us both, about revenge and justice and whether they were ever really the same thing, about breaking cycles and carrying scars and trying to be better than the worst thing you've ever done. Do you think you're a good person? She asked me at one point. I thought about it, really thought about it. No, I said finally. Good people don't deny dying women medical loans out of spite, but I think I'm trying to be better than I was, and maybe that's all anyone can really do. Do you think my mom was a good person? I think she was a person, probably doing her best in a system that didn't give her good options, probably carrying her own pain and stress that made her less capable of seeing mine. She made a terrible decision, but she also recognized it eventually, asked for help for you, tried to break the cycle even if she couldn't fix what she'd broken. So we're all just broken people breaking each other? Some days it feels that way, but I think we're also capable of healing each other. Not fixing, you can't fix some things, but healing, growing, changing. Corinne stayed late that night. We didn't solve anything. Didn't reach some perfect resolution where everything made sense and the pain went away. But we sat together in the complexity, and that felt like enough. I'm 52 now. Corinne is 32, married to a teacher named Oscar Merrick, who's patient and kind, and exactly what she deserves. They have a daughter, Lila, who's 3 years old, and calls me Grandpa. I watch Lila sometimes, this small person who exists because I raised Corinne, who raised her because I destroyed her mother, who destroyed her mother because she destroyed me. The chain of causation is dizzying if you think about it too hard. Lila doesn't know any of this history yet. She just knows that Grandpa takes her to the park and reads her stories and makes her pancakes in funny shapes. She's growing up in a stable home with parents who love her and extended family who show up. She'll never know what it's like to be 16 and alone and failed by every system that's supposed to protect you. If I have anything to do with it, she never will. But part of me wonders what we lose when we break these cycles, when we protect our children so thoroughly that they can't understand what it took to build their safety. Whether healing ourselves means erasing the memory of what hurt us, and whether that erasure comes at its own cost. I'm still in therapy, still working on being a person instead of a machine, still learning how to feel things besides calculated satisfaction or efficient competence. I'm better at it than I was. I have friends now, real ones, not just professional contacts. I volunteer with an organization that helps at-risk teens navigate the education system. I use my knowledge of bureaucracy to help families fight for their kids the way no one fought for me. I'm still successful at the bank, but I've redefined what success means. Not climbing higher, not accumulating more power, but using the power I have in ways that help instead of hurt. It's not redemption. You can't redeem killing someone, even indirectly, even legally, but it's something. It's trying. Sometimes I dream about my father. He's sitting in his wheelchair in our old apartment, looking at me with those tired eyes, and he's asking me if I won. If all the years of work and anger and calculated revenge added up to victory, and I don't know what to tell him. I won in every measurable way. I reclaimed the property, built wealth, achieved status, got my revenge on the woman who failed me. But the winning hollowed me out, turned me into exactly the kind of cold, institutional force that I hated. And I only found my way back to humanity because I was forced to raise the daughter of the woman I killed. That's not victory. That's just complexity. In my dreams, my father nods like he understands. Then he says, "But you broke the cycle. That's something." And I wake up not sure if that's enough. There's a photo in my office, me and Corinne and Oscar and Lila, taken last Christmas. We're all smiling. We look like a normal family, like people who've had normal lives, normal histories, normal relationships. You can't see the ghosts in the photo. Can't see my father, dead at 39 because the insurance company fought his claim. Can't see Meredith Lockwood, dead at 52 because I denied her the help she desperately needed. Can't see the 16-year-old me, expelled from school and drowning in responsibility. Can't see the 10-year-old Corinne, orphaned and angry and convinced she was unlovable. All of that exists outside the frame, in the space between what we show and what we carry. I look at that photo sometimes and wonder what Lila will think when she's old enough to understand the full story, when she learns that her grandmother was killed by the man who raised her mother, when she understands that her stable, loving family exists because of a chain of failures and revenge and desperate attempts at redemption. Will she still call me Grandpa? Will she still climb into my lap for stories? Will she understand that people are complicated, that good and bad don't sort neatly into separate boxes, that sometimes love and harm come from the same person? Or will she just see a man who killed someone and decide that's all she needs to know? I don't have an answer, won't have one for years. All I can do is keep showing up, keep being present, keep trying to be worthy of the second chance I gave myself by raising Corinne. Last week, I ran into someone from Riverside, Blake Ashbury, my old friend from high school. We hadn't seen each other in 30 years. He barely recognized me. I was 16 when we last spoke, exhausted and angry and about to be expelled. Now I'm 52, wearing an expensive suit, looking like exactly the kind of successful person the guidance counselor might have held up as an example. "You made it," Blake said, genuinely happy for me. "Look at you. I always knew you'd be okay." I didn't correct him, didn't explain that making it looked different from the inside. That success and okay weren't the same thing. That you could achieve everything you set out to prove and still wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if you're a monster. We exchanged numbers, promised to get coffee, probably won't. Because what would we even talk about? He has his life and I have mine. And the gap between 16 and 52 is too wide to bridge with pleasant catch-up conversation. But the encounter stuck with me, made me think about all the versions of myself that exist. The exhausted teenager cleaning offices, the cold loan officer denying applications, the uncertain foster parent trying to raise a traumatized child, the grandfather reading stories to Lila. Which one is the real me? Which one counts when the accounting is done? Celia would say they're all me, that people contain multitudes, that we're all walking contradictions, that the work is learning to accept all of it. but I'm not sure I can accept the man who looked into Meredith Lockwood's desperate eyes and said no, who used institutional power to settle a personal score, who let revenge matter more than a human life. That man still lives inside me somewhere, still capable of calculating coldness, still capable of prioritizing rules over people. I've just learned to manage him better, to catch those impulses before they become actions, to choose differently, but the capacity is still there, will always be there. That's the part that scares me most. Not what I did, but what I'm still capable of doing if the right circumstances align. I'm at the cemetery today. I come here sometimes, to Meredith Lockwood's grave. Corinne doesn't know I do this. I'm not sure what she'd think about it. There's a simple headstone. Her name, her dates, beloved mother. Nothing about being a guidance counselor, nothing about her career, just the one relationship that mattered most. I never speak out loud when I'm here. Don't know what I'd say anyway. Sorry seems inadequate. Sorry doesn't bring someone back. Sorry doesn't undo what was done. But I stand here and I think about her. Try to imagine her as a full person instead of just the woman who expelled me, or the woman I denied. Try to imagine her stress, her fears, her hopes for Corinne. Try to imagine what she thought about in those final months, knowing she was dying, knowing she was leaving her daughter alone. Try to imagine her writing that letter, asking that someone reach out to me, trusting that I would do for her daughter what she'd failed to do for me. That took either tremendous faith or tremendous desperation, maybe both. I think about the letter sometimes, the one Felicity showed me. Meredith had written that she failed me, that the decision haunted her, that she wished she could undo it. But she wrote that letter after she'd been diagnosed, after she'd been denied the loan, after she knew she was dying. Did she write it because she genuinely regretted what she'd done to me, or because she was desperate and knew appealing to my experience of being orphaned was her last chance to ensure care for Corinne? I'll never know. And maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the motivation is less important than the result, that Corinne got the support she needed, that the cycle broke. But part of me wants to know if Meredith Lockwood actually changed, if she recognized the systematic coldness she'd shown me and decided to be different, or if she just got unlucky enough to end up on the other side of that coldness and finally understood how it felt. Is growth real if it only happens when you're forced to experience the consequences of your actions? I don't know that either. I know that I'm different now than I was when I denied her loan. I know that raising Corinne cracked me open in ways I'd thought were sealed forever. I know that I've spent years trying to be better, trying to use my power to help instead of harm. But I also know that I only got here because I had to face what my revenge cost. That I only became capable of empathy again because I was forced to parent the child I'd orphaned. Would I have changed otherwise? If Meredith had died quietly, if there had been no daughter, no letter, no obligation, would I have just continued being the cold, efficient loan officer, denying applications and sleeping fine? Probably, and that's the thought that haunts me most. Not that I did a terrible thing, but that I was capable of doing it and feeling nothing, that I'd successfully turned myself into a machine, and only random chance, Corinne's existence, Meredith's letter, forced me back toward humanity. I leave the cemetery and drive to my office. Sit at my desk and look at the photo of my family. Look at the loan applications on my computer screen, dozens of them, each one representing someone's hope or desperation or chance at a better life. I approved 3 applications today that I would have denied 5. Years ago, the numbers aren't perfect, the risk is real, but the circumstances are compelling, and I've learned that circumstances matter. I've learned that policy without humanity is just another form of violence. I've learned it too late to save Meredith, but maybe not too late to save someone else. Corinne calls me on a Tuesday evening. I'm at home, reading financial reports and half watching a baseball game. "Can I ask you something?" she says without preamble. "Of course." "Do you think you're a better person than my mother was?" The question hits me in the chest. I mute the television, set down my papers. "Why are you asking?" "Because I've been thinking about it. About what she did to you versus what you did to her. About cycles of harm and who's responsible for breaking them. And I can't figure out if you're better because you changed, or if you're worse because your harm was more deliberate." I sit with the question, really sit with it. "I think your mother and I, we're broken in similar ways," I say finally. "We both learned to prioritize systems over people, to hide behind policies and standards instead of making difficult, compassionate choices. We both failed people who needed us. But she failed you when you were a child. You failed her when you were an adult with full knowledge of what you were doing." "That's true." "So which is worse?" "I don't know that worse is the right framework. We both caused real harm. We both used institutional power to protect ourselves instead of protecting someone vulnerable. The details are different, but the fundamental failure is the same. But you changed. You raised me. You've spent 15 years trying to be better. And your mother asked for help for you, recognized her failure even if she couldn't fix it, tried to break the cycle in the only way she could." Corinne is quiet for a long time. "I think I've forgiven her," she says finally, "for being cold, for prioritizing policy, for not fighting harder for you. I've realized that she was human, flawed, doing her best in an impossible situation." "That's good. She deserves your forgiveness." "Do you forgive her?" I think about that. About 16-year-old me, exhausted and desperate, being told that personal problems don't excuse academic responsibility. About the years of anger that followed, the cold hardness I built, the revenge I took. "I think I understand her now," I say. "I think I see how easy it is to hide behind policy, to tell yourself you're just doing your job, to prioritize institutional functioning over individual suffering. I did the same thing to her that she did to me. That's not forgiveness." "No, but it's recognition, and maybe that's more important. Recognizing that we're all capable of the same failures, the same cruelties, given the right circumstances. Do you think I'll forgive you, eventually?" The question makes my throat tight. "I hope so, but you don't have to. What I did to your mother, it's bigger than our relationship. You can love me and never forgive me, and that's okay." I'm trying to figure out how to hold both things, the father who raised me and the man who killed my mother. "You don't have to figure it out. You just have to live with it. We both do." Another silence. "I'm pregnant again," she says suddenly, changing the subject. "We haven't told anyone yet, but I wanted you to know." Joy and grief hit me simultaneously. Another grandchild. Another life built on top of the lives that were destroyed to get here. "Congratulations," I say, and I mean it. That's wonderful news. "We're thinking of naming her Meredith," Corinne says, "after my mom. Would that be okay?" I have to close my eyes, breathe through the weight of it. It's more than okay, it's beautiful, it's right. I want my kids to know who she was, the good parts and the mistakes, the whole person, and I want them to know you the same way, not as some perfect grandparent, but as someone who was broken and tried to heal, who failed and tried to make it right. That's a lot to put on children. No, it's just the truth, and I think kids can handle the truth better than we give them credit for. We talk for a while longer, about her pregnancy, about Lila, about whether I'll come to dinner this weekend, normal things, family things. When we hang up, I sit in my quiet apartment and think about legacy, about what we leave behind, about whether the good we do can ever outweigh the harm. I don't have an answer, but I have Corinne, and I have Lila, and soon I'll have another grandchild named Meredith who'll carry her grandmother's name into a future her grandmother never got to see. That's not redemption, but it's continuation, it's complexity, it's life built on top of death, built on top of pain, built on top of trying. It's all we get. I'm 60 now. Corinne is 40, with 3 children and a career, helping foster youth navigate the same systems that failed us both. She's good at it, has the perfect combination of understanding and toughness, empathy and practical knowledge. She uses me sometimes, brings me in to talk to kids who are working while in school, who are caring for sick parents, who are being failed by institutional indifference. I tell them my story, not the sanitized version, not the inspirational narrative, but the real one. I tell them about being 16 and expelled and alone. I tell them about turning that pain into cold efficiency, about building power and using it for revenge. I tell them about meeting Meredith Lockwood in my office and choosing cruelty over mercy. I tell them about what that revenge cost, not just her life, but my own humanity. And I tell them about Corinne, about learning to be a person again through the hard work of raising someone else, about breaking cycles not through perfection, but through showing up anyway. Some of them get it, some of them just see a successful, older man who overcame adversity. Some of them are too angry to hear anything except validation for their anger. I understand all of those responses. I've been all of those kids. The truth about revenge is this: it doesn't heal anything. It doesn't undo what was done to you. It doesn't make you whole. What it does is turn you into the thing you hate, makes you perpetuate the exact systems and cruelties that broke you in the first place, gives you temporary satisfaction at the cost of permanent damage. I got my revenge. It was perfect, calculated, legal, devastating, and it killed someone and orphaned a child and turned me into a monster. The only reason I found my way back is because I was forced to face what my revenge actually meant. Forced to raise Corinne. Forced to see my own failure reflected back at me every day until I couldn't ignore it anymore. That's not a triumph. That's just barely avoiding total moral collapse. I think about Meredith Lockwood sometimes, wonder what she'd think about how things turned out, about Corinne becoming the kind of person who helps instead of harms, about me learning, too late, the lesson she never got to learn, about a family being built on the foundation of our mutual failures. I visit her grave less often now. Don't need to stand there and wrestle with guilt quite so desperately. I've learned to carry it instead, not as crushing weight, but as ballast, as reminder, as the price of trying to be better. Lila is 20 now, studying social work. The middle child, Meredith, is 17 and wants to be a lawyer. Specifically wants to do legal aid work for families fighting the system. The youngest, Victor, named after my father, which made me cry when Corinne told me, is 14 and still figuring out what he wants to be. They all know the story, the whole messy, complicated truth of it. They know what their grandmother did to me. They know what I did to her. They know how their family came to exist, and they're growing up anyway. Growing up whole and healthy and aware that people are complicated, that harm and healing can come from the same person, that you can love someone and acknowledge the terrible things they've done. That's Corinne's gift to them. And maybe, in some small way, it's the gift Meredith and I gave her. A deep understanding that the world is unfair, systems are broken, people fail each other constantly, and you still have to try. You still have to show up. Choose compassion over policy. Break the cycle. I'm 60 years old. I've achieved everything I thought I wanted and learned it wasn't enough. I've taken perfect revenge and learned it was hollow. I've been broken and hard and tried to heal. I've been both victim and perpetrator, both orphan and father, both destroyed and rebuilt, And what I've learned is this: there's no such thing as winning when it comes to pain. No such thing as evening the score. No such thing as justice that doesn't carry its own cost. All you can do is try to be less broken than you were yesterday. Try to help instead of harm. Try to choose the harder, kinder path, even when everything in you wants to choose revenge. Some days I manage it, some days I don't. But I keep trying. Because that's what Corinne taught me. That's what raising her taught me. That's what Meredith's death taught me. Too late to save her, but not too late to save myself. And maybe that's enough. Not redemption, not forgiveness, not winning. Just trying, just showing up, just refusing to let the cycle continue, just breaking it, one difficult choice at a time, knowing that every choice carries weight, and none of them can undo what's already been done. Just living with the complexity of being human, capable of both profound harm and profound healing, often simultaneously, often despite ourselves. That's the truth about revenge. That's the truth about justice. That's the truth about everything I learned too late and too hard, and I carry it with me every single day into whatever time I have left. Stories like this happen more often than we think. Subscribe if you want to hear the ones that usually stay unspoken. And if this story made you pause, a like helps the channel grow.